What would you do if your whole life felt like a shadow of someone else's success? What if suddenly everything you've known was turned upside down? Alice's life was predictable, calm, steady, and focused on work. But after an accident, a heartbreaking revelation about her sister, and her family's betrayal, everything began to change. Now Alice is determined to take control of her life, her future, and her independence. Stay tuned to see how she redefines success and embraces a new season of her life. My channel's struggling, so if you're intrigued, please comment 1 to help me out. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Subscribe to see how it ends, and I wish you all good health. My daily routine always begins the same way. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the shrill sound of my alarm reverberates through the quiet, tree-lined streets of Brooklyn Heights. As I open the curtains, the Manhattan skyline rises before me, shrouded in the soft haze of the morning. From my room on the 3rd floor of this brownstone, I take in the view. The towering skyscrapers of the city never fail to offer a quiet kind of peace, grounding me in the stillness of the early hours. My gaze drifts to the silver frame on my vanity. It's last year's Christmas photo, a family portrait. My sister Bethany is front and center, with our proud parents smiling beside her. And there I am on the edge, Alice Wilson, with my usual reserved smile. Let's do our best today. This small ritual of speaking to myself in the mirror is something I've done for years. After a quick shower, I slip into my navy pantsuit and carefully style my brown hair. As a senior manager at a prominent accounting firm, every detail of my appearance must be immaculate. By the living room window, my cherished herb plants sit in a neat row of thyme and rosemary, their fragrance filling the air and offering me little moments of joy. On weekends, I spend hours here reading, the sound of Bach softly playing in the background. Early as usual, dear. Mrs. Martha, the elderly neighbor from across the street, is tending to her garden. In her 70s, she's become like a grandmother to me. Good morning, your garden looks lovely today. I pause as I approach her. Thank you, Mrs. Martha. Oh, did you hear about Bethany? She's doing so well on Wall Street. Your parents must be so proud. I stop for a moment, the words catching in my throat. My sister has become a celebrated investment analyst, her career soaring, her income far surpassing mine. She lives in a luxury Manhattan apartment, draped in designer clothes, always in the social media spotlight. Yes, indeed, I respond, forcing a smile, though my chest tightens with a familiar knot. From childhood, it was always Bethany who received our parents' praise. No matter what I achieved, good grades, promotions, or accomplishments, Bethany's smaller wins were always celebrated with more enthusiasm. Even my acceptance to graduate school felt like it paled in comparison to her high school report card. As I board the subway, I'm reminded of yesterday's family dinner. These Sunday dinners have been a tradition, one that my mother insists on maintaining. Bethany, darling, tell us about that wonderful news again! Mother was practically glowing with pride as she served the roast beef. Oh, it's nothing special, just an award nomination, Bethany said, playing it modest, though her eyes sparkled with a pride that couldn't be hidden. Then my father chimed in. Alice, why don't you follow Bethany's example and be more proactive? I nodded silently, my stomach sinking. My promotion, the new projects I'd successfully launched, none of it seemed worthy of a mention. At the office, I'm immersed in the familiar bustle of corporate audits, tax return reviews, and staff supervision. Steady, reliable, honest, that's my motto, my mantra. Miss Wilson, could you check these calculations? Olivia, a new hire, approaches my desk hesitantly. She always tells me I'm a strict but fair supervisor. Of course, dear, have a seat. As I review the numbers, I glance out the window. Somewhere in those towering Manhattan buildings, Bethany's office sits. For just a fleeting moment, uncertainty flickers across my face, but I quickly push it aside. This is my life, peaceful, stable, predictable, yet something is missing. But little did I know, this routine, this life was about to be dramatically shaken in a way none of us could have predicted. At 8 o'clock on the evening of February 15th, I was hurrying toward the subway station from my office on Atlantic Avenue. Looking up from under my umbrella, I saw the Brooklyn Bridge creating an ethereal scene illuminated by streetlights through the rain. the final check of tomorrow's audit report, while organizing tomorrow's schedule in my head. I approached the crosswalk. As usual, the light was green. I tilted my umbrella slightly to check the subway entrance on the other side. Suddenly, headlights came rushing from the left at an alarming speed. The sound of an engine revving, tires sliding on the wet pavement. There wasn't even time to scream. A violent impact. My body was lifted into the air, then thrown into darkness. Just before losing consciousness, strangely enough, I thought I heard my mother's voice. "Alice, why can't you be more like Bethany?" White ceiling, the smell of antiseptic, regular machine beeps. "Miss Wilson, can you hear me?" My eyelids felt heavy as my vision slowly came into focus. I saw a doctor in a white coat looking down at me with concern. "You've been in an accident and you're now at New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. It's been about 2 hours since you were brought in unconscious." A nurse was adjusting sensors on my body, recording vital signs on the monitor. The whole scene felt like it was happening in a distant world. When I tried to move, sharp pain shot through my body. My right leg was immobilized in a heavy cast, and the pain in my chest and abdomen made even breathing difficult. My face was bandaged where I apparently had lacerations. "The X-rays and blood tests are back," the doctor continued. "Surgery on the fracture is essential tonight. We may need to address internal bleeding during the operation as well. We're planning for about 3 hours of surgery. Don't move. You have full-body contusions, a broken right leg, and several lacerations. Surgery is necessary tonight." "My family?" "Yes, we've contacted your emergency contacts." I felt a slight relief at those words. Surely my parents would come at a time like this. Just after the nurse left after checking my phone rang. It was Mother. "Alice?" "Mom, I've been in an accident. Yes, the hospital called, but listen." Mother's voice became hesitant. "Today is Bethany's award ceremony. She's receiving the Analyst of the Year award. It's a very important ceremony, so..." For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what she meant. "We can't come to the hospital today because we have to attend the ceremony, but I need surgery." As my voice trembled, Father took the phone. "Alice, this is crucial for Bethany's career. There are nurses there, aren't there?" Suddenly, I felt all strength leaving my body. "I understand," I managed to reply, fighting back tears. After the call ended, silence returned to the hospital room. Only the rhythmic sound of the foredrip remained. I turned on the TV with the remote the nurse had brought. As if fate was mocking me, there was my sister's award ceremony being broadcast. The glamorous Cipriani Wall Street. Bethany standing on stage in a dazzling dress under sparkling chandeliers. Our parents in the front row, their faces beaming with pride. They all look so happy while I'm here alone. I couldn't even wipe away the tears streaming down my cheeks. The arm with the 4 wouldn't move as I wanted it to. Outside the window, a light rain continued to fall. Manhattan's lights twinkled in the distance like phantoms. Alone in the dim hospital room, illuminated by the cold blue light of the TV, I kept watching my family's smiling faces, time until surgery. My watch mercilessly ticked away the seconds. Something deeper than physical pain was constricting my heart. Nurse Maria quietly entered the room. Seeing my state, she immediately turned down the TV's volume. "Will your family be here soon?" she asked gently. When I shook my head, Maria nodded in understanding. "I'll start the pre-medication now. When you feel sleepy, just rest." As she added the medication to my 4, I stared at the ceiling. For the first time, I was looking objectively at my life. Lived dedicated to work, my relationship with my parents and sister, the emotions I'd always suppressed, and the true meaning of family. "Alice, we're ready for your pre-op preparations." As my bed started moving toward the operating room, the fluorescent lights in the hallway passed overhead like scenes from a movie. In that light, I made a decision to make this surgery, this night, the beginning of a new life. When I awoke from anesthesia, the window showed the dim light of dawn. The night nurse told me the surgery had been successful. Though the pain was still there, I stared at the ceiling through a numbed heaviness. With hazy consciousness, the persistent ringing of my cell phone broke the silence. 7:15 in the morning. The screen showed Mom. Remembering last night, I hesitated for a moment, but picked up. "Hello?" Alice, where are you? Still at the hospital? Mother's voice rang out at an unusually high pitch. I could hear Father's agitated voice in the background. Yes, the surgery is over. We need to see you right now, Bethany. Bethany! Mother's voice broke off and I could hear her sobbing. Father took the phone. We're coming there now. There's something important we need to discuss. But visiting hours? That doesn't matter. I instinctively held the phone away from my ear at Father's shout. I'd never seen him so distraught before. I could make sense of the situation. Shocking news began playing on the hospital room TV. Breaking news. Major investment firm uncovers massive fraud. Wall Street rising star. Bethany Wilson arrested. The screen flashed with the image of my sister, Bethany, her radiant smile from last night's ceremony replaced by the cold, harsh reality of her being led away by police. Still in her designer suit, she covered her face with both hands. The suspect is alleged to have misappropriated approximately $20 million in client funds for personal use. Evidence suggests the funds were spent on luxury cars, overseas travel, jewelry collections, and other lavish personal expenses. I felt a chill creep down my spine as my mind went blank. Last night's award ceremony, that smile, that radiance, had it all been a lie? The hospital room door burst open. My parents rushed in, despite it being before visiting hours. Mother hadn't even removed her makeup, and her eyes were swollen from crying. Father had lost his usual dignified composure, his shoulders slumped. Alice, please help Bethany. Mother rushed to my bedside, grabbing my hand with trembling fingers. The bail is set at $3 million. We're putting up our assets as collateral, but it's not enough, Father said, his voice calm but urgent. We need to use your savings. Yeah. My savings? I repeated quietly. The $1.8 million I had worked for accumulated over years of diligent work as a senior manager. Living modestly money I had saved bit by bit for my future security? We can't let Bethany go to prison, Mother cried out, her voice breaking. She's still young. Don't let this ruin her life. If you give us all your savings, we can manage the rest somehow, Father continued, his tone authoritative, as if I had no choice in the matter. I looked up at the ceiling. The sound of the IV drip seemed unusually loud in the silence that followed. Why didn't you come to be with me during my surgery last night? I asked, my voice soft. We told you Bethany's award ceremony, which turned out to be a fraud too. Mother stumbled over her words. All this time, Bethany's success was all that mattered. When I got my degree, when I was promoted, you showed almost no interest. And last night, you chose an awards ceremony over your daughter facing surgery. This is not the time for such talk. Father's voice raised in irritation. Are you going to abandon your sister? At that moment, Nurse Maria entered, her presence a calm interruption. I'm sorry, but she needs to rest. My parents were reluctantly ushered out, but before they left, Mother turned back. Think about it. Bethany's life is at stake. The room fell into silence once again. I let out a deep sigh. Through the window, New York City was beginning its usual hustle. As Maria took my blood pressure, she spoke softly. Your body and mind's recovery is what's most important right now. I nodded, absorbing her words. The thoughts I had long harbored about my family, about what I had endured for years, were demanding a major decision. But perhaps now, this moment, was the time to focus on my own healing. The TV continued to broadcast the news about my sister's arrest. The truth hidden behind the facade of the brilliant investment analyst was gradually coming to light, and in my heart, something was definitely beginning to change. 2 weeks later, I was riding the elevator up to my parents' Manhattan apartment on the Upper East Side. Leaning on my cane, though the pain in my leg had eased, I was still far from full recovery. James Murphy, my company's legal counsel and trusted advisor, stood quietly beside me. I had decided that legal expertise would be necessary for today's discussion. Are you ready? Murphy asked in a gentle voice. I nodded slightly. Mother opened the door. She, who usually maintained perfect makeup and hair, didn't even try to hide her exhausted expression. Alice, her voice mixed faint hope with anxiety. Father was waiting in the living room. Through the large window's Central Park scenery was visible the view from this luxury apartment, once the family's pride, now felt somehow empty. "So you brought a lawyer," Father said irritably. "Yes, this is also a legal matter," I answered calmly. I placed my cane beside the sofa and slowly sat down. "Here's the report from Bethany's defense team." Father picked up the documents on the table. "The total amount of misappropriated funds may be more than initially reported. It could reach 25 million. Mother let out a small cry. "But if we can just make bail." I looked straight into Mother's eyes. "Paying bail won't make Bethany's crimes disappear. She needs a chance to rehabilitate. Surely you understand." Mother cried out emotionally. "Do you understand how I felt, waiting alone for surgery in my hospital bed?" My voice trembled slightly. Heavy silence dominated the room. "Alice, let's put the past behind us," Father said in a conciliatory tone. "This is a time for family to unite." "Family?" A bitter smile involuntarily crossed my face. "Did you ever once make me feel like family?" I tried to stand up and pain shot through my leg, but this time I could bear it. "You rejoiced in Bethany's flashy success while ignoring my steady efforts. You were intoxicated by your daughter's false glory and chosen award ceremony over your daughter's surgery, and now you dare speak of a family. You've become such a cold person." Mother's eyes welled with tears. "Are you going to abandon your sister?" I responded in a quiet but firm voice. "Abandon? I'm the one who's been abandoned all along." Murphy took out some documents. "Miss Wilson let me explain the bail situation from a legal perspective." Father leaned forward. "What are you getting at?" "At this point, Bethany Wilson's alleged crimes go beyond simple misappropriation of funds," Murphy began, explaining calmly. "There are also suspicions of organized investment fraud, document forgery, and tax evasion. Even if bail is paid, there's an extremely high likelihood of additional charges." I added, furthermore, paying bail would invite scrutiny into the source of my savings. Bank and tax authority investigations would be unavoidable. "What are you saying?" Father's voice grew harsh. "I won't be complicit in Bethany's crimes. In fact..." I took a deep breath and continued. "I've decided to provide information about the past irregularities to the prosecution." Father stood up. "You're going to expose our family's shame?" This time I raised my voice. "Being intoxicated by false glory, discriminating against your daughter trying to be complicit in crime, isn't that the real shame?" Mother broke down crying. Father approached me, seemingly enraged. "Have you forgotten the debt you owe us for raising you?" I stood up quietly without relying on my cane on my own feet, demanding returns for parental love that's truly twisted thinking. "Get out!" Father shouted. "You're no longer my daughter." "Yes, that's right," I said. "Perhaps we were never truly family even long before this." Murphy carried my bag and accompanied me to the elevator. "You held up well," he said compassionately in the elevator. "Yes, but I'm all right now," I smiled. "I feel like I've finally reclaimed my true self." As we left the building, the spring air enveloped us. The trees in Central Park were beginning to show new buds. While getting into the taxi, I looked up at the sky. I felt deep in my heart that this wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. That evening, I received a call from the district attorney's office. New evidence of Bethany's fraud had been discovered, and additional charges would be filed. There were persistent calls from Mother, but I felt no need to answer them anymore. When I returned to my home in Brooklyn, Mrs. Martha was planting flowers in her garden. "Welcome home, dear," she smiled kindly. "I'm planting new flowers. They'll bloom beautifully come spring." I smiled back. A new season is about to begin, isn't it? September 2024. Breaking news. The streets of Brooklyn Heights gleamed under the early autumn sunlight. A sleek sign reading Wilson and Associates Accounting had just been installed on an office building near the Brooklyn Promenade. As I opened the door to my accounting firm, the changes of the past 6 months weighed heavily on my thoughts. From the office windows, the towering Manhattan skyline stretched before me, a stark reminder of how much had shifted. The cluster of high-rises where my sister's office once stood now felt like a distant memory, a part of a landscape I no longer recognized. Good morning, Miss Wilson. Emily at reception greeted me cheerfully, her voice a welcome reminder of the colleagues who had supported me when I ventured into independence. Did you see the morning news? Emily asked quietly. Yes, I nodded slightly. The headline had been impossible to ignore. Bethany's sentencing was front and center. 15 years in prison. The additional evidence that had come to light revealed the full extent of her misdeeds, over $30 million in misappropriated funds. And father's real estate company? It was in turmoil. Major clients were severing ties one after another, each departure chipping away at the credibility that had once been their foundation. Though I still occasionally received emotional messages from my parents, I no longer replied. The distance had become permanent. Miss Wilson, here are the materials for the 10 o'clock meeting. Olivia, the new hire, entered, handing me a stack of documents. Olivia had also supported my decision to strike out on my own. Thank you. By the way, how's the Proano project coming along? The accounting system improvement for the Single Mother Support Center is on track, right? I asked, already focused on the next step. When I became independent, I made a vow to dedicate a portion of our profits to social causes. It was my way of redefining success, understanding that it was about more than just financial gain. Yes, it's on schedule, Olivia replied, her smile bright. Just then, Mrs. Martha walked in holding a bouquet of flowers. Alice! She greeted me with a warm smile. This is to celebrate 6 months since your opening. I grew these flowers in my garden. Oh, thank you so much, I beamed, touched by her kindness. The bouquet sparkled with roses and gerbras in an array of vivid colors. The week before, we'd had the most delightful home party, marking a shift from the family dinners I used to have. Now, my neighbors and I were creating our own traditions, real, unspoken connections with people who cared, not bound by blood, but by something far more genuine. Oh, yes, I got the concert tickets, Mrs. Martha said excitedly. Carnegie Hall next month. B, right? The luxury of enjoying classical music on weekends had returned to my life, a simple pleasure I hadn't realized I missed so much. In the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Murphy. Bethany is requesting to see you. I'll have to decline, I answered without hesitation. I'm not going back to the past. Outside the window, boats drifted across the East River, moving slowly across the sparkling water. Even the bridge where I had the accident now looked different to me, transformed, no longer a place of pain. On my desk sat a new family photo taken at the recent office opening party. There were my staff members, Mrs. Martha, and my new friends. Everyone's smiles were warm, genuine. This was real. Alice, could you do a final check on this proposal? Michael, a senior staff member, entered my office carrying a thick file. Of course, I nodded with a smile, feeling a true sense of fulfillment. I understood now, more than ever, the joy of work and the importance of human bonds that transcended anything I had known before. As the evening approached and I finished tidying up my desk, I stood by the window. The lights of Manhattan were beginning to twinkle, one by one, as the city came alive. I realized then that life sometimes takes unexpected turns, but if you stay true to what really matters, a new path will always open up. I had learned that lesson firsthand. I reached for my gardening gloves. Tonight, I would tend to the plants on my balcony, nurturing the small corner of peace I had built. After all, tomorrow would bring a new day. What do you do when the people you've spent your whole life trying to impress finally show their true colors? Do you keep giving, hoping things will change, or do you decide that your own happiness matters more? Alice spent years putting her all into her family's approval, always second to Bethany, her sister who seemed to get everything handed to her on a silver platter. No matter how much Alice achieved her steady promotions, her hard-earned savings, Bethany's fleeting successes were always celebrated with more fanfare. But when Alice found herself alone in the hospital, abandoned by her parents during her surgery for Bethany's important award ceremony, something inside her shifted. That night, she made a decision. The reality of her family's priorities became clear when they expected Alice to sacrifice her own security to bail Bethany out of legal trouble. But Alice, now recovering from her accident and reflecting on her life, realized that the family she had tried so hard to fit into had never truly supported her. They only cared about Bethany's success. With that truth in hand, Alice chose to break free from their manipulation. She didn't just walk away from the chaos. She took control, exposing the lies and standing up for her own peace. So, what would you do in Alice's shoes? Would you keep pouring into a relationship that drains you? Or would you finally walk away and reclaim your own happiness? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspiring tales.
Guess what? We had a baby. Come celebrate with us. Vanessa's voice dripped with insincerity as it came through the phone, jolting me out of the quiet comfort of my living room. My fingers tightened around the phone. The audacity of this woman never ceased to amaze me. Vanessa, I said slowly, forcing a calmness into my voice that I did not feel. Congratulations. Thanks, Emily. It's going to be this Saturday. You have to come. It wouldn't be the same without you. Her cheerful tone grated against my nerves, but I wasn't about to let her see that. I'll check our calendar, I replied, non-committal. The last thing I wanted was to celebrate anything with Vanessa, but I knew avoiding her completely was impossible. Perfect. See you there. She hung up before I could respond. I let out a deep sigh and dropped the phone onto the couch. Derek, who must have noticed the tension on my face, walked over from the kitchen. What's wrong? He asked, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. It's Vanessa, I said, unable to prevent the bitterness creeping into my voice. She wants us to come to a celebration for their new baby. Derek's expression darkened. She's something else, isn't she? She stole my fiancé without a second thought, and now she wants me to celebrate with her? I said, more to myself than to Derek. The past I had tried so hard to move on from reared its ugly head yet again. We don't have to go if you don't want to, Derek suggested, wrapping his arms around me. I leaned into his embrace, closing my eyes and trying to let the warmth of his touch soothe me. No, I said after a moment. We'll go. I need to show her that I've moved on, that she didn't break me. Derek kissed the top of my head. I'll be right there with you. Saturday arrived quicker than I would have liked. As we drove to Vanessa and Brian's home, memories of my past relationship with Brian flooded my mind. I pushed them aside, focusing on the present. Derek's presence beside me was an anchor. We reached the house, a picture-perfect suburban home. Vanessa had always wanted the most desirable things. Her attention to superficial details never changed. As we walked up to the front door, Vanessa was there to greet us. Emily, Derek, I am so glad you could make it. She hugged me stiffly, an overly sweet smile plastered on her face. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, my own smile not quite reaching my eyes. Brian was inside, holding the baby, a proud smile on his face. Seeing him after all this time brought back a flood of emotions, but I held my head high and walked over to him. Congratulations, Brian. Thanks, Emily. It means a lot that you're here, he said, his smile genuine. I could see a flicker of the man I used to love in his eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of our past. Derek stayed close by, his presence a constant reassurance. Vanessa fluttered around, playing the perfect hostess, but I could sense the tension beneath her polished exterior. Near the end of the party, Vanessa cornered me in the kitchen while I was getting a drink. So how's married life treating you? She asked. Better than I could have ever imagined, I replied honestly, a genuine smile on my face this time. She studied me for a moment before speaking again. You've really moved on, haven't you? Yes, Vanessa, I said, meeting her gaze directly. I have. A shadow crossed her face, but she quickly replaced it with another fake smile. That's good to hear. Derek appeared in the doorway then, holding my coat. You ready to go, Emily? Yes, I am, I said, walking over to him and slipping my arm through his. I looked back at Vanessa one last time. Goodbye, Vanessa. As we walked out of the house, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had faced the ghosts of my past, and I was stronger for it. Derek squeezed my hand, a silent promise that we would face whatever came next together. Back home, the drive still lingering in my mind, Derek sat beside me, warm and silent. I knew what I had to do. The past few days had stirred something inside me, a need to confront the memories I'd buried. I was sitting at the dining table when it hit me, Brian's blue eyes, his light laughter, and how it all began. Just a small volunteer event downtown. Emily, he had said, extending a hand as we stood by the food stand. I'm Brian, Nice to finally meet you in person. His smile was genuine, and his eyes lit up when he saw me. We had exchanged emails for months, brainstorming ways to support local shelters. In person, he was even more charming. We clicked instantly, sharing an easy camaraderie. As the months went by, our meetings turned into dates. One cool autumn evening, Brian and I stood on a rickety bridge overlooking a small, serene creek. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small box from his coat pocket. My heart raced. As he opened the box, the glint of the diamond ring caught the moonlight. "Emily, will you marry me?" His voice was soft, hopeful, as if the world hung on my answer. I had said yes. It had felt right, destined even. Until Vanessa. Vanessa had shown up at our engagement party, uninvited but with that signature smile. "Ems, long time no see," she had said, pulling me into a hug. Despite her cheerful demeanor, an unsettling chill always accompanied Vanessa. Derek wandered into the room, breaking my reverie. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, sitting across from me. "Just remembering how it all started," I replied. "I'd like to hear it, if you're willing to share," he said gently. "All right," I said, drawing a deep breath. Vanessa had been the friend everyone warned you about, always looking for ways to undermine, subtly belittle. She had a knack for finding weaknesses and exploiting them. It was no wonder she had wormed her way into Brian's life. One afternoon, I had suggested a double date, introduce Vanessa to Brian, try to mend old fences. But as weeks passed, Brian seemed increasingly distant. "You're working late again?" I'd asked him one night, a hint of frustration in my voice. "Yeah, just a lot going on at the office," he replied, not meeting my eyes. The strain between us grew, but I wanted to believe in him, in us. Until one evening, by sheer chance, I stumbled upon them. They were at the local park, hidden away but not invisible. Brian was in Vanessa's embrace, her lips pressed close to his ear. "You're so much more exciting than Emily." His voice was low, but the words seared into me. Vanessa's laughter followed. "I knew you'd realize how boring she is." I felt the ground fall beneath me, I said to Derek now, my voice trembling. Derek reached over, taking my hand in his. "And yet here you are, stronger than ever." I nodded. It wasn't easy, but it made me who I am now. "I believe in you, Emily. We'll face whatever comes next together." His resolve steadied me. With Derek by my side, I felt a new surge of strength. I would see this through, and Vanessa would see just how strong I had become. The next day, as I sorted through my old photos, I found one of Brian and me at a small cafe. It was from the day I introduced him to Vanessa. The three of us, laughing and oblivious to the chaos that lay ahead. I remember that day vividly. It was the first time the two of them met. We were at the Red Maple Cafe, a quaint place downtown known for its coffee and pastries. "Brian, this is Vanessa," I said cheerfully, motioning to her as she walked in. Vanessa flashed her charming smile, and I felt a pang of unease. "Nice to meet you, Vanessa," Brian said, shaking her hand. "Likewise, Brian. Emily talks about you all the time," Vanessa replied smoothly. We settled at a corner table. Brian and Vanessa started chatting about everything: movies, travel, work. Vanessa had a way of making people open up, making them feel like they were the only person in the room. I tried to join in, but it became clear I was more an observer than a participant. Weeks passed, and Brian began to grow distant. He blamed it on work stress. I didn't want to believe anything else. One night, as he left for another supposed late-night meeting, I decided to follow him. Under the dim streetlights, I trailed his car until he stopped at a park. He got out, and there she was, Vanessa, waiting for him. I watched from a distance, hiding in the shadows. They talked, but soon their conversation turned into an embrace, and then a kiss. "You're so much more exciting than Emily," Brian said, running his fingers through her hair. Vanessa laughed softly. "I knew you'd realize how boring she is." My heart shattered. The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my gut. I stumbled back, trying to leave quietly, but stepped on a branch. "What was that?" Brian snapped, looking around. I ducked behind a tree, holding my breath. After a moment, they seemed to shrug it off, and I took the chance to escape. My world crashed down around me that night. I went to our apartment and waited, tears streaming down my face. When Brian came home, I confronted him. "So, late night at work, huh?" I said bitterly. He looked startled. "Emily, it's not what you think." "Save it, Brian," I cut him off, my voice shaking. "I saw you with her. How long has this been going on?" He ran a hand through his hair, eyes avoiding mine. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't mean for this to happen. How could you do this to me? To us? Anger mixed with heartbreak in my voice. It just happened, he said weakly. I felt something with Vanessa that I didn't feel with me. I interrupted. Spare me, Brian. You're pathetic. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I couldn't take it. I grabbed my purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I called Vanessa the next day. We need to talk, I said coldly. Sure, Emily. Should I bring coffee? Her tone was mocking. I met her at the cafe. The confrontation was swift and brutal. Why, Vanessa? She shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. Because I could, Emily, and because you trust too easily. You're vile, I said, my voice low. Maybe, but I'm good at it, she replied with satisfaction. That was the last day I spoke to either of them. Until now. As I placed the photo back into the box, Derek came into the room. You all right? He asked, concern in his eyes. Yeah, I said, taking his hand. I'm ready to face what's next. Remember, I'm with you every step of the way, he reassured me. With his support, I knew I could confront the darkest parts of my past and come out stronger on the other side. I woke up the next morning feeling drained yet resolute. The confrontation last night had dredged up old wounds, but it also gave me a newfound determination. It was time to rebuild. The first step was to get out of the house. I threw on a comfortable pair of jeans and a sweater, and Derek suggested we go for a walk to clear our minds. We strolled down the bustling streets, eventually finding ourselves at a small, cozy cafe. I could use a coffee, Derek said, smiling at me. Sounds good, I replied. As we sat at a corner table, I glanced around and noticed a familiar face. Derek must have seen my expression change. What's up? He asked. It's Brian, I said quietly, motioning with my eyes. He was sitting alone, staring into a cup of coffee. The sight of him brought back a flood of emotions, but I kept my composure. Do you want to leave? Derek asked, ready to whisk me away at a moment's notice. No, I said firmly. I need to face this. I walked over to Brian, each step deliberate and steady. He looked up, eyes widening in surprise. Emily. Brian, I said, taking a seat across from him. I'm sorry, he stammered, but I held up a hand to stop him. I'm not here for apologies, I said simply. I just want to understand why. Brian looked down, fiddling with the handle of his cup. I don't have a good excuse, Emily. I was selfish. Vanessa was different, new. I know it's no justification. No, it's not, I replied bluntly. You knew what we had meant to me, and yet you chose to throw it all away. He nodded, a look of regret etched on his face. I know, and I've regretted it every day since. Does Vanessa know you feel this way? I asked, curious about the dynamics of their relationship now. He hesitated, then sighed. Vanessa doesn't care about how I feel. She never has. It's always been about her. I studied him for a moment. The man sitting before me was a shadow of the person I once loved. And yet you stayed with her. Leaving her now would ruin everything, he said quietly. My career, my reputation. She knows too much. I could see the fear in his eyes. Vanessa had a grip on him, tighter than I'd imagined. Brian, I said softly, you deserve better than to live in fear. He shook his head, clearly defeated. I don't know if I can ever get out. I stood up, determined to face my future without looking back. That's your choice to make, Brian, but I won't be a part of it. I walked back to Derek, who had watched the whole exchange from a distance. How did it go? He asked, eyes filled with concern. I think it's time to stop dwelling on the past, I said with a newfound clarity. Derek nodded. Sounds like a good plan. Days passed, and I focused on my work and building a life with Derek. It was during a business seminar that my new chapter truly began. I met Derek again, though this time as partners running our own startup. He was speaking about innovation when our eyes met across the room. Building something new requires vision and partnership, he concluded, stepping down from the podium. I approached him, confidence restored. Great speech, Derek, I said, a genuine smile lighting up my face. Thanks, Emily. We make a good team, don't we? He replied, returning my smile. We do. Here's to new beginnings, I said, holding up my coffee cup. To new beginnings, he echoed, clinking his cup against mine. As we walked out together, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, Derek and I would face them hand in hand. The past had shaped me, but it wouldn't define me. I was ready for whatever came next. The call from Vanessa lingered in my mind, but I knew attending their gathering was the first step in facing my demons. Derek was supportive, Together, we'll show her you can't be broken, he said one evening as we planned our approach. I won't let her get the best of me, I replied, my resolve hardening. The night before the visit, we sat on the living room couch, going through our plan. Derek, she'll try to provoke us. We need to keep calm, no matter what. I'll be right there with you, he reassured, holding my gaze. The day arrived. As we parked outside Vanessa and Brian's lavish suburban home, my heart raced. Derek squeezed my hand. You ready? Yes, I replied, taking a deep breath before we walked to the door. Vanessa greeted us with that overly sweet smile. Emily, Derek, come in, she chirped, but her eyes were calculating. I could see the gears turning in her head. Brian approached, a drink in hand. It's been a long time, Emily. Yes, it has, I replied coolly, meeting his gaze briefly before looking away. The room was filled with guests, laughter, and chatter. Vanessa played the perfect hostess, but there was an edge to her actions. She fluttered between guests, but her eyes kept darting to me. Derek and I mingled, making polite conversation. As the evening wore on, Vanessa approached me, a faux friendly smile plastered on her face. Emily, can we privately? Sure, I said, maintaining a calm exterior as I followed her to a quieter corner. You've moved on, I see, Vanessa said, her tone laced with insincerity. I have, I replied steadily. Good for you, her eyes narrowed. But let's be real, you came here to prove something, didn't you? I met her gaze head on. I came to show you that I'm stronger than you think. We'll see about that, she said, a sinister smile crossing her lips. She reached into a nearby drawer and pulled out a small recorder. I have something for you, she said, pressing play. Brian's voice crackled through the speaker. Vanessa, you're right. Emily was too trusting, too naive. My stomach churned, but I kept my face impassive. Nice trick, Vanessa, I commented dryly. She leaned closer. I always knew you were too soft for this world, but look where I am now. Before I could respond, Derek walked up. Everything all right here? He asked, his eyes locking on Vanessa's. Perfect timing, I said, smiling at him. Vanessa's eyes widened. He really is your husband? Derek extended his hand. Derek, CEO of Greenleaf Inc. Nice to meet you, he said smoothly. Vanessa stumbled back, shock and realization crossing her face. Is this for real? Yes, Vanessa, I said, satisfaction dripping from my words. Very real. At that moment, Brian walked over, sensing the tension. What's going on here? Vanessa tried to regain her composure, but it was too late. Derek turned to Brian. We were just discussing how integrity is key in both personal and business relationships. Brian's eyes flicked between us, uncertainty clouding his face. Vanessa? He questioned, looking at her warily. She opened her mouth to retort, but the damage was done. The cracks in her facade were visible. Derek placed a protective arm around me. Let's get going, Emily. Yes, let's, I agreed. We walked out, leaving Vanessa and Brian to deal with the aftermath of their duplicity. In the car, Derek leaned over and kissed my forehead. You did great, Emily. Thanks, I said, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. I think I finally got my closure. With each mile back home, the past drifted further behind us. What lay ahead was a future built on honesty, love, and mutual respect. A future Vanessa could only dream of. The following weekend, it was time to put our plan into action. Derek and I arrived separately. Derek would come a bit later, just as we had rehearsed. I walked up to Vanessa's door, confidence radiating from my every step. She answered with that same disingenuous smile. Emily, alone again? She smirked. I wouldn't be so sure, I replied coolly, stepping inside. The house was filled with the usual gathering of their friends. Vanessa led me to the living room, where Brian was talking with some guests. He looked up, surprise crossing his face. Emily, good to see you again, he said, though his voice lacked enthusiasm. Brian, I nodded. Vanessa's eyes darted between us, calculating. So, she began, addressing the room, we have a guest tonight. Emily, why don't you say a few words? The room quieted, all eyes on me. I felt a surge of determination. Thank you, Vanessa. It's nice to be here among friends, I started, my voice steady. It's funny how life changes, how people and relationships evolve. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa's smile was tighter. Oh, we all know about evolving relationships, don't we? She said sweetly. I continued, unapologetic. I met Derek a few years ago at a business seminar. He's been my rock ever since. And though we started from scratch, we've come a long way. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. The doorbell rang, a perfectly timed interruption. Derek walked in, immediately drawing the room's attention. Apologies, traffic was horrendous, he said, making his way to my side. Derek, CEO of Greenleaf Inc. Nice to finally meet everyone, he added, shaking hands with a few guests. Vanessa's eyes widened in recognition, but she quickly composed herself. Looks like you weren't lying, Emily, she chuckled, although her eyes betrayed her. The evening continued, and it wasn't long before Vanessa beckoned me to follow her into the study. I glanced at Derek, who nodded slightly. It was time. Emily, let's have a private chat, she suggested, a hint of malice in her tone. I followed her, entering the cluttered room filled with awards and framed photos. Vanessa shut the door behind us. So enjoy playing house with your rich husband? She sneered. You seem awfully interested in my life, Vanessa, I replied calmly. Maybe a bit too interested. She walked to a drawer, pulling out the same recorder. Remember this? She asked, pressing play, but there was nothing. Her face paled. What did you do? The real question is, what have you done, Vanessa? I said. Just then, Derek walked in. Sorry to intrude, but I couldn't help overhearing, he said, stepping beside me. Vanessa, how many secrets do you have stuffed away in that drawer? Her face contorted with rage. You think you can waltz in and disrupt my life? Derek remained calm. Your life was built on lies. Time for them to come crashing down. He pulled out his phone, playing a recording where Vanessa was heard whispering multiple indiscretions to different men. It was all laid bare. Vanessa's facade crumbled. You're destroying me, she hissed. No, Vanessa, you did that to yourself, I replied, the weight of past betrayals lifting. Brian burst into the room, hearing the tail end of our confrontation. What is going on? He demanded. Derek turned to him. Your wife's been deceiving you far more than you know, Brian. Brian looked at Vanessa, realization and hurt crossing his face. Is it true? He asked, voice breaking. Vanessa whimpered, tears streaming down her face. Brian, I can explain. Don't. I've heard enough, he interrupted, storming out. Derek took my hand, guiding me out of the study. The guests stood in awkward silence as we made our exit. Outside, Derek turned to me, his eyes full of pride. You did it, Emily. You faced her. I smiled, a sense of liberation washing over me. We did it together. As we drove away, I couldn't help but feel a tremendous sense of closure. Vanessa's true nature had been exposed, and I was free, ready to embrace the future with Derek, leaving the past well and truly behind. As we left Vanessa's house, the satisfaction of exposing her deceit filled me with a sense of relief. Derek drove us home in silence, his hand firmly holding mine. The weight of the past few months was slowly lifting. The next morning, I received a call from an unknown number. Emily, it's Brian, the voice on the other end said, sounding defeated. What do you want, Brian? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. I needed to talk. Can we meet? He asked, desperation evident in his voice. All right, the Red Maple Cafe in an hour, I replied before hanging up. When I arrived, Brian was already seated, looking disheveled and worn out. I sat down across from him. So what's this about? I asked. Vanessa and I had a massive fight last night after you left. She's been lying to me about so many things, affairs, money, everything, he said, rubbing his temples. She's never been honest, Brian. You chose to ignore the signs, I stated simply. I know, he admitted, tears welling up in his eyes. I don't know what to do, Emily. My life is falling apart. I looked at him, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. Brian, the truth is, you let this happen. Vanessa manipulated you because you allowed her. Now you have to decide if you want to change things. He nodded, taking in my words. I've been such a fool. Yes, I agreed, but it's not too late to start over. You need to find your own path, away from Vanessa. Brian took a deep breath. You're right. I'm filing for divorce. I need to rediscover who I am without her. Good luck, Brian, I said sincerely, standing up to leave. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a sense of closure with Brian. It was time to focus on myself and my future with Derek. Later that evening, Derek and I were sitting in our living rooms working on some documents for our company. The atmosphere was peaceful, a sharp contrast to the chaos we'd recently faced. Emily, I got an email from our biggest investor. They want to meet us to discuss expanding our project, Derek said, excitement in his voice. That's amazing news, I replied, sharing his enthusiasm. We've come so far together, Derek said, taking my hand. I couldn't have done it without you. And I couldn't have faced my past without you, I replied, squeezing his hand. The following week, Vanessa's dirty laundry was aired publicly. Social media and local news buzzed with details of her multiple affairs and financial misdeeds. Her world was crumbling. Brian called again, this time to thank me. "Emily, I've started the divorce process," he said. "I owe it to myself to be better." "I'm glad to hear that, Brian. Take care of yourself," I replied, genuinely wishing him well. Vanessa, on the other hand, tried to salvage her ruined reputation. She called me, but I ignored it. Derek and I had more important things to focus on, our future. One evening, as Derek and I walked through a park hand in hand, he stopped and looked at me. "Emily, this is just the beginning for us. I can't wait to see what we'll achieve together." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Together, we're unstoppable. As we embraced, the weight of the past finally lifted from my shoulders. The journey had been long and painful, but it had forged something unbreakable between Derek and me. Returning home, we celebrated the victory of stepping into a new chapter of our lives. Our company was gaining momentum, and our relationship was stronger than ever. Derek raised a toast. "To new beginnings," he said, his eyes full of promise. "To love and resilience," I added, clinking my glass against his. With Derek by my side, I knew we could face whatever challenges lay ahead, leaving the shadows of our past far behind. A few weeks later, the fallout from Vanessa's exposure was still echoing through our small town. Derek and I focused on our work, growing stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, I received a call from a number I recognized too well. "Emily, it's Vanessa." Her voice was weak, a stark contrast to her usual bravado. "What do you want, Vanessa?" I asked, keeping my tone cold. "Meet me. Please, I need to talk," she begged. "Why should I?" I countered. "Just please." "I'm at the park near the old library," she said before hanging up. I found her sitting on a bench, looking more gaunt and haunted than ever. She saw me and started to speak. "Emily, everything's falling apart. Brian's left. Our finances are a mess. I need help," she pleaded, tears pooling in her eyes. "Help?" I scoffed. "You destroyed my life and expect me to help you?" "I know I've done terrible things, but I'm desperate," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You poisoned everything you touched, Vanessa. This is your mess to clean up," I answered firmly. "I'm begging you, Emily. I have no one else," she said, sobbing now. I looked at her, feeling a pang of pity, but reminded myself of the pain she caused. "Find a way out yourself, Vanessa. Like you said, I was too naive before. Not anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions. I called Derek, my anchor in this storm. "How did it go?" he asked. "She's hit rock bottom," I said, relief mixed with a touch of sadness in my voice. "You did the right thing," he reassured. Days turned into weeks, and Derek and I continued to push our business forward. One evening, I received a call from our biggest investor. "Emily, I'm pleased to inform you that your proposal has been accepted. We are funding your project," the voice on the other end announced. "That's fantastic news," I exclaimed, excitement bubbling inside me. Derek overheard and rushed over. "What is it?" "We got the funding," I said, throwing my arms around him. "We did it." Derek smiled, a look of pride on his face. I knew we would. Later, we celebrated with close friends and family at our home. Among the guests was Margaret, Derek's mother, who had been a pillar of support. "I'm so proud of you both," she said, embracing us. "Thank you, Margaret." "We wouldn't have done it without your encouragement," I replied, genuinely grateful. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Derek and I found a quiet moment together. "This is just the beginning," Derek said, holding my hand. "Yes, it is," I agreed, my heart full of hope for the future. The next few months were a whirlwind of meetings, traveling, and growing our business. Our hard work paid off, and soon we celebrated a major milestone with our team. "To success," Derek toasted. "And to the incredible journey ahead," I added, clinking my glass with his. In the midst of all this, news of Vanessa continued to circulate. She lost her job, her house, and eventually left town in disgrace. The last I heard, she moved back in with her parents, a far cry from the life she once flaunted. One summer afternoon, Derek and I sat in our backyard, reflecting on everything that had transpired. "You know," I said thoughtfully, "I never imagined we'd get here from where we started." Derek nodded. "But we did, Emily. We turned the worst chapters into our greatest strength." I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "Thank you, Derek, for everything." "We're a team," he replied softly, And together, we can face anything. As we watched the sunset, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had led to a place of true happiness and fulfillment. Derek and I were ready for all the new adventures life had in store for us, with the past firmly behind us. Together, we had redefined our path, turning pain into purpose and building a future grounded in mutual respect and love. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. Leah, we need to go, now. Alex stood by the door, one shoe on, one shoe off. His phone buzzed on the counter, a jittery reminder of his mother's panicked voice moments earlier. Did she say what happened? I asked, rushing to grab my keys. No, just that everything's out on the lawn and she needs us. Sounded off, Leah. Really off. We sped through the quiet streets, my heart drumming in sync with the pulsing engine. Ruth had always been a strong woman, not the sort to easily panic. My fingers tightened around the wheel, my mind racing. When we pulled up to the house, the scene was jarring. Ruth's belongings were strewn across the yard. Old photo albums lay open, pages fluttering in the breeze. Furniture was haphazardly arranged, and Ruth sat on the porch, a calm smile on her face. It didn't fit. Mom? Alex rushed forward. What happened? Are you okay? Ruth looked up, her eyes twinkling with something I couldn't quite place. They think they've outsmarted me. Little do they know, their game has just begun. Alex and I exchanged a worried glance. What do you mean? Who did this? Ruth patted the space beside her, inviting us to sit. Sebastian and Trina. They want control, but I'm not so easily fooled. The weight of her words hung in the air. We had known Sebastian and Trina were ambitious, but this was beyond anything we imagined. Leah, they left her here, just abandoned her. Alex's voice cracked with frustration. Mom, you need to come with us. It's wrong. We can't just leave you here. Ruth nodded, standing up with a grace that belied her age. Let's gather what we can. The rest can wait. As we packed up Ruth's life, she seemed oddly composed. Alex kept shaking his head, eyes clouded with confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Ruth's cryptic comment about the game had unsettled me deeply. Back at our place, we settled Ruth into the guest room. Alex and I sat in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us. Finally, he broke it. She said, their game has just begun, Leah. What does she mean? I shrugged, feeling the same unease. I don't know, but we need to find out. Ruth's presence changed the dynamic of our home completely. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened, her demeanor eerily serene. Over dinner, she was her usual bright self, discussing mundane things like the weather and neighborhood gossip. It was only later, as I watched her from the doorway of her room, that I caught a fleeting glimpse of something cold and calculating in her eyes. It disappeared almost as soon as it appeared. The next morning, Alex and I sat sipping coffee, our thoughts clearly on the same track. We need to talk to Sebastian and Trina, I suggested. Agreed, but let's do it carefully. They won't confess easily. Leah, I just want a family that's close. I thought moving back here would bring us together. His voice was laced with disappointment. I reached out, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. We'll figure this out. We will. Days turned into a blur of whispered conversations and silent tensions. Alex set up a meeting with Sebastian. Meanwhile, Ruth continued her cryptic hints, always stopping just short of revealing her full hand. One night, as I walked past Ruth's room, I heard her murmur, "The pawns are in place." Yet my blood ran cold. Something serious was unfolding, and we were right in the middle of it. As we prepared to face Sebastian, a mixture of dread and determination settled in my chest. This wasn't just about Ruth anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, protecting our family, and maybe playing a game we hadn't known we'd entered. And I was ready to win. Sitting across from Sebastian was like confronting a glacier, cold and immovable. His eyes darted between Alex and me, a smirk playing on his lips. Trina sat beside him, flipping through her phone, acting disinterested. "So what's this about, little brother?" Sebastian finally asked, that smug grin not leaving his face. Alex clenched his fists under the table. "Mom's things were thrown out. She was scared and confused. We want to know why." Sebastian raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "Mom's condition is worsening. It's better for her to be with someone who can provide constant care." "And that someone is you?" Alex's voice dripped with sarcasm. Trina finally looked up, her expression bored. She needs stability, Alex. Your job keeps you busy. We can provide what she needs. I felt my anger rising. Abandoning her on the porch doesn't sound like providing care. Sebastian shrugged. She was being difficult. We had to make a point. Alex's face turned red. A point? She's your mother. Sebastian's smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. Don't lecture me, Alex. I'm handling it. The tension in the room was suffocating. I realized we wouldn't get any honest answers here. Alex stood up abruptly, and I followed. This isn't over, Sebastian, Alex said. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. Make sure it's not. You wouldn't want to test me. As we left, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sebastian and Trina were hiding something far more sinister. They had no intention of letting Ruth regain control over her life. When we got home, Ruth was knitting in the living room, calm as ever. She glanced up at us. How did it go? She asked with a knowing smile. Not well, Alex replied, dropping onto the couch. Did you expect anything different? Ruth's tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. We stayed silent for a moment before Ruth spoke again. It's time you knew what Sebastian and Trina are really after. She motioned for us to sit. We listened as she began to unravel the tangled web of manipulation. Sebastian and Trina had been planning this for a long time. Ruth's assets, her will, everything was part of their strategy to secure control. They think I'm losing my mind, Ruth said with a hint of amusement. But I've been keeping tabs on them. They've underestimated you, I said, admiration creeping into my voice. Ruth nodded. Their greed will be their undoing. That night, Alex and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. We need a plan, he said quietly. I turned to him. We need to protect her and expose them. In the following days, we set our plan into motion. Ruth handed over documents, receipts, anything that tracked Sebastian and Trina's moves. Every revelation fueled our resolve. One evening, our doorbell rang. It was Trina, holding a box of Ruth's things. Mom left these at the house, she said sweetly. She's not your responsibility anymore, Alex snapped. Trina's eyes glinted. We'll see about that. As she left, I exchanged a look with Alex. The battle lines were drawn. Their game was cruel, but we were ready to fight back. Ruth's quiet strength bolstered our determination. We'd protect her from this twisted game and bring Sebastian and Trina's plans crashing down. The stakes were high, but like Ruth said, it was they who had miscalculated. Every weekend, Alex and I visited Ruth at Sebastian's house. Each time, the hostility from Sebastian and Trina was palpable. One Saturday, we found Ruth alone in the living room, gazing absently out the window. Hi, Mom, Alex said gently. She turned, smiling. Hello, dear. Leah. Sebastian entered, his face darkening at our presence. You're early. We wanted to spend some time with Mom, I said, matching his cold stare. Don't mind us, Alex added. We'll just be a while. Sebastian scoffed. Make it quick. Trina and I have plans. We exchanged a look with Ruth, her eyes calm but aware. We sat and chatted, trying to ignore Sebastian's hovering presence. After a while, Ruth's gaze drifted to her eldest son. Sebastian, why don't you join us? His sneer was immediate. Pardon? I have better things to do than listen to family trivia. Like plotting against Mom? Alex shot back. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. Careful, Alex. Ruth's hand on Alex's arm was the only thing that kept him from saying more. Let's not quarrel, she said softly. He bit his lip, but stayed silent. Ruth turned to me, her eyes asking 1,000 questions. I forced a smile. It's just frustrating seeing how you're treated. Leah, she said, her voice firm, we'll handle it. Sebastian's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. Mom, Trina and I are taking over your care. It's obvious you can't live alone anymore. Ruth's composed mask didn't slip. And what exactly do you mean by that? Sebastian shrugged. You'll be moving in with us permanently. My jaw dropped. Without discussing it? She's not in any state to argue, he replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ruth's eyes locked on mine. We'll see. The atmosphere was heavy as we left. Back home, Alex punched a wall in frustration. He's manipulating everything. We can't let him do this. We won't, I promised. But we need evidence. The following weeks, we documented every interaction, every comment. Ruth's clarity in those moments was undeniable. She played along, giving just enough to keep Sebastian and Trina at bay. One afternoon, while Ruth and I sat in the garden, she spoke quietly. They're convinced they've won, but every pawn they move brings them closer to their downfall. Alex joined us, bringing his laptop. Look at this. Mom, did you sign any documents recently? Her eyes flickered with a hint of triumph. Sebastian tried to force my hand. I signed nothing of importance. That's crucial, Alex said, showing us forged papers. They're trying to make it look like you did. Ruth's smile was frightfully serene. They'll regret underestimating me. Days later, I overheard Sebastian and Trina conspiring. Once she's declared unfit, everything's ours, Trina whispered. Sebastian smirked. It's only a matter of time. I recorded their conversation, my heart pounding. Our proof was building, and with it, our resolve. The next family dinner, Ruth was the picture of serenity. Mid-conversation, she casually dropped, I'll be making some changes to my will. Sebastian's fork clattered to his plate. What changes? Ruth smiled sweetly. To protect myself from unforeseen circumstances. You can't do that, Trina snapped, panic edging her voice. Oh, but I can, Ruth replied, and I will. The dinner ended in frosty silence, but we knew we had them on edge now. That night, Alex and I stayed up late, plans unfurling between us. Ruth wasn't alone in her fight. We were a team, and we aimed to expose every deceit, every betrayal. The game was far from over. Ruth's resilience and cunning fortified our resolve. Sebastian and Trina might have started this, but we intended to finish it. Days turned into weeks, and each visit to Sebastian's felt like stepping into enemy territory. Ruth remained a calm force, but the tension was suffocating. Her serene demeanor only seemed to infuriate Sebastian and Trina more. One humid Saturday afternoon, Alex and I were sorting through some of Ruth's papers in the guest room when we heard raised voices downstairs. We hurried to find Ruth and Sebastian in a heated argument. You can't just take over my life, Sebastian. Ruth's voice was trembling but firm. You're not thinking straight, Mom. This is for your own good, Sebastian snarled, his face a mask of frustration. Alex stepped between them. Stop this, Sebastian. She's not incapable. You have no right. Trina appeared out of nowhere, her face twisted with a mean smile. You're fighting a losing battle, Alex. Just accept it. No, Alex shot back. We're not giving up on Mom. Ruth's eyes met mine with a silent resolve, then turned back to Sebastian. I may be getting old, but I'm not blind to your intentions. Sebastian's jaw tightened. You'll regret standing against us. Later that night, as we prepared to leave, Ruth pulled us aside. I overheard them talking, she whispered, her expression more serious than usual. What did they say? I asked, heart pounding. They plan to get me declared mentally unfit. They need the control. Alex's eyes widened. How can they do that? Now Ruth's smile was grim. They've already got a doctor who'll back their claim. Then we need to act fast, I said. We need more evidence. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, simmering tension. Ruth continued to play her role, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Still, she never wavered. One evening, Alex and I decided to pay a surprise visit. We arrived to find Ruth sitting quietly in the living room, her usually neat hair slightly disheveled. She motioned us to sit. Listen carefully, she said softly. I've learned they plan to have me moved to a facility. What? Alex's voice was loud, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's happening soon, Ruth continued. Sebastian wants to make it look like I can't live at home anymore. Trina suddenly appeared, her eyes narrowing as she noticed us. What are you doing here? We needed to talk to Mom, I said calmly. Trina didn't bother to hide her contempt. You're meddling where you don't belong. It's too late to save her. Ruth stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving Trina's. This isn't over. Trina smirked. It will be soon. We left with a fierce determination burning in our chests. At home, we gathered everything we had. The recordings, the forged documents, every piece of the puzzle that showed Sebastian and Trina's plans. The next morning, we confronted Sebastian and Trina in Ruth's living room. Alex held up a stack of papers. We know what you've been doing, and we have proof. Sebastian's face went white, but he quickly masked it with anger. Get out. This isn't your business. It's very much our business, I said, stepping closer. We won't let you do this. Trina's eyes flared with anger. You have no idea what you're up against. Ruth's voice cut through the tension. Neither do you. That's when I noticed the flicker of doubt in their eyes. They sensed the tide turning. We left them in a stunned silence, our mission clear. Protect Ruth at all costs and bring their schemes into the light. As we walked away, the weight of the conflict didn't seem so crushing anymore. For the first time, we felt hope. The battle wasn't over, but we were prepared for whatever came next. Ruth's strength fortified us, and together we would dismantle the sinister game piece by piece. The following week, our tense standoff with Sebastian and Trina escalated rapidly. Secrets and lies clashed with our determination to protect Ruth. One rainy afternoon, I decided to sneak into Sebastian's office while he was out. The room reeked of arrogance, with its dark, imposing furniture and meticulously organized documents. My hands shook slightly as I rifled through drawers. Footsteps in the hallway made my heart race. I ducked behind the heavy curtains just as Trina entered. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and hushed. "The doctor will declare her unfit by Friday. Make sure the papers are ready. Once that's secure, we'll transfer everything into our names." Recordings. I fumbled with my phone, pressing record as fast as I could, capturing her malicious plan. Our proof was growing stronger by the minute. After Trina left, I carefully placed everything back in its place and slipped out of the office, heart pounding. As Alex drove us home, we replayed the recording. Each word filled us with a fresh wave of anger. "We've got them now," Alex said, gripping the wheel. "This proves everything." The next day, Ruth asked to be taken to a familiar park. We walked through the quiet paths, the sun casting long, comforting shadows. Her eyes were alert, yet her silence indicated contemplation. "They've put their pieces on the board," she finally said. "It's time for us to make our move." Alex nodded. "We're ready. We have enough to take to the attorney." That evening, we prepared the documents and recordings, carefully organizing them to present a compelling case. Each file was another nail in Sebastian and Trina's coffin. The confrontation came sooner than expected. On Friday morning, we received a call. "Mom's gone." Alex's voice was frantic. "They've taken her." I swallowed a rising panic. "Where?" "I don't know. They're not answering." We drove to Sebastian's house, a firestorm of urgency fueling us. Upon arrival, we found the house empty, echoing with a disturbing silence. Panic turned to grim resolve. "Check the study," Alex urged. "There might be clues." In Sebastian's office, we found an itinerary for a private clinic. I snapped a picture and raced back to Alex. "This must be where they took her." "We're bringing her back," Alex said, his voice steely with determination. We reached the clinic in record time. As we barged in, Sebastian met us at the door, fury blazing in his eyes. "You're not supposed to be here, and you're not supposed to kidnap our mother," Alex shouted. Trina stood beside him, smug and defiant. "We have every right. She's unfit." Ruth's voice broke through the commotion. "Funny, considering you needed to forge documents to prove it." Alex stepped forward. "We have recordings of your plans, your threats. It's over, Sebastian." Sebastian's expression flickered with doubt, but quickly hardened into a sneer. "You have nothing." "We'll see about that," Alex replied, holding up his phone. "We're taking this to the authorities." Trina's confidence crumbled as the reality of their situation hit her. "This isn't over," she screamed, but her voice lacked conviction. We escorted Ruth out, her demeanor calm, but her eyes blazing with triumph. On the drive home, she said, "They underestimated us." "That was their first mistake," I replied, glancing at Alex, who squeezed my hand. At home, we sat around the dining table, a quiet victory settling over us. Ruth's strength had been our guide, her resilience our beacon. Sebastian and Trina's vile nature had been their undoing, and with every piece of evidence, we moved closer to justice. We knew the battle wasn't entirely over, but we stood united, ready for whatever came next. Ruth smiled at us, her eyes full of pride. They thought they outsmarted us, but they were playing my game all along. And in that moment, I felt it in my bones. This family was stronger than their deceit, and together we would ensure that justice was served. The following Monday, we gathered our evidence and headed to our attorney's office. The weight of everything we'd collected bore down on us, but Ruth's presence steeled our resolve. Mr. Harris, our attorney, scanned through the documents and recordings with growing astonishment. "This is damning evidence," he said finally. "It's more than enough to take to the authorities." Ruth nodded firmly. "It's time we put an end to their schemes." We left Mr. Harris's office with a sense of guarded triumph. Now the battle was in the hands of the legal system. Our job wasn't finished, but we had struck a decisive blow. Back at home, Ruth shared a quiet moment with Alex and me. "Thank you for standing by me," she said softly. "This wouldn't have been possible without you." "We're a family," Alex replied. That's what we do. A week later, the police arrived at Sebastian's house. We watched from a distance as officers escorted him and Trina into custody. The sight was surreal, the culmination of all our efforts finally taking tangible form. That's just the beginning, Ruth said, watching them being driven away. Their reckoning is far from over. Later that evening, Ruth invited us to join her in the living room. There's something you need to know, she said, motioning us to sit. She began recounting the moments she had overheard Sebastian and Trina's plans. It was clear from the start, they didn't just want control, they wanted everything. As she spoke, a chilling determination underscored her words. I decided to pretend, to play into their perceptions. Being underestimated gave me the upper hand. You were brilliant, Mom, Alex said, admiration evident in his voice. Thank you, she replied. But the fight's not over yet. We have to see this through. The true extent of Ruth's cunning became clear when she revealed her final move. I moved my assets into a trust managed by Leah before their plans could take hold. My breath caught. You trusted me with everything? Ruth's eyes softened. You've always had a good heart, Leah. I knew you would protect my legacy. The next few days were a whirlwind. The scandal of Sebastian and Trina's arrest reverberated through the community, disgracing them publicly. Every news outlet carried the story of their attempt to manipulate and defraud their own mother. One evening, a knock at the door revealed an officer with more news. Sebastian and Trina are being charged with elder abuse and fraud. Their trial is set for next month. Alex and I shared a look of relief. Finally, justice was within reach. Ruth's eyes sparkled with a renewed vigor. We'll be there to see it happen. The weeks leading up to the trial were tense, but Ruth's strength anchored us. She remained steadfast, her resolve unwavering. And when the day of the trial arrived, we walked into the courtroom as a united front. Sebastian and Trina looked defeated, far removed from their former arrogance. The evidence we provided painted a damning picture, and their defense crumbled under the weight of their deceit. Ruth took the stand, her testimony a powerful testament to her resilience. I am not a pawn in their game. I am my own person, and I will not be controlled. The verdict was clear and just, guilty on all counts. Outside the courthouse, the reality of our victory settled in. Ruth turned to us, her eyes filled with gratitude. We did it. No, Mom, Alex corrected gently. You did it. We just followed your lead. Ruth's smile was a beacon of the strength and love that had carried us through. This family is stronger together. They underestimated that, and it was their downfall. As we drove home, a sense of closure enveloped us. Ruth's cleverness and our unity had triumphed over deceit and greed. The battle had been long and arduous, but we emerged stronger, bound by the love and determination that made us a family. After the trial, a tense quiet settled over our lives. But beneath the calm surface, we knew the battle wasn't truly over. Sebastian and Trina might be facing jail time, but there were still loose ends to tie up. One evening, Ruth gathered us in the living room. There's something more you need to know, she said. Her eyes twinkled with a mischievous glint I hadn't seen before. What is it, Mom? Alex asked, curiosity piqued. Ruth looked at us with a sly smile. I've been planning one last move. Sebastian and Trina think they've hit rock bottom, but they haven't seen anything yet. I blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Ruth leaned back in her chair, her demeanor confident. Their house, their cars, everything they've accumulated using my money, I've already started the process to have it all seized. They'll have nothing left, Alex said, understanding dawning on his face. Ruth nodded. Exactly. They need to understand the full consequences of their actions. The next day, we worked with the attorneys to expedite the process. The legal wheels turned swiftly, and soon enough, the foreclosure notices were delivered. Facing both incarceration and financial ruin, Sebastian and Trina were left reeling. A week later, we visited the house one last time. The once intimidating mansion now stood eerily quiet, stripped of its former grandeur. Sebastian and Trina were there, gathering their remaining belongings. As we approached, Sebastian's face twisted with anger. You've taken everything from us. No, Ruth corrected calmly. You did that to yourselves. Trina's face was a mask of hatred. You think you've won, don't you? Yes, Ruth said simply. Not because of what I've taken, but because of what I've protected. Sebastian lunged forward, but the presence of our attorney and a couple of officers kept him at bay. This isn't over, he spat. Actually, it is, Alex said, stepping between us and Sebastian. For you, it's all over. We walked away from the scene knowing that Sebastian and Trina's downfall was complete. Ruth's resolve and our unity had ensured they could no longer harm our family. In the days that followed, the mood in our home lifted. Ruth's trust in us had brought a new level of closeness in our family dynamic. We spent more time together, enjoying the simple moments that had once seemed elusive. One sunny afternoon, we decided to have a small celebration in the backyard. As we set up the table, Ruth smiled warmly at us. This is what family should be, she said contentedly. Alex wrapped his arm around her shoulder. We owe it all to you, Mom. You taught us what it means to be strong. And clever? I added with a grin. Thank you, both of you, Ruth said, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. I wouldn't have come this far without you. Under the amber glow of the setting sun, we sat around the table, toasting to our shared victory and newfound peace. It felt like the dawn of a new chapter, one free from the shadows of betrayal. But as we basked in our moment of happiness, a slight worry tugged at the back of my mind. Would Sebastian and Trina truly give up? Had we really seen the last of their vile nature? Only time would tell. For now, though, we chose to live in the present, cherishing the harmony we had fought so hard to reclaim. Ruth's wisdom and courage had taught us that family wasn't just about blood. It was about standing up for each other, no matter the cost. In the end, Ruth's gambit had outsmarted the most cunning adversaries. It had shown us the true strength of our bonds and the importance of justice. And for that, we were eternally grateful. A month had passed since the trial, and life had settled into a new, comforting rhythm. Ruth now lived with us, her presence a constant source of strength and warmth. We all did our best to put the turbulent past behind us, though at times it cast long shadows over our days. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, a knock at the door shattered our peace. Alex went to answer it, and moments later he returned with a letter in his hand, his expression unreadable. What is it? I asked, my pulse quickening. It's from Sebastian, he said, handing me the envelope. A chill ran down my spine as I opened it and began to read. Dear Alex, it seems you and your beloved Leah have won this round. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. Just remember, a cornered animal is the most dangerous. We will be back. I looked at Ruth, who sat calmly awaiting our reaction. He's threatening us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Ruth sighed, her eyes reflecting a mix of annoyance and resolve. Let them try. We're ready for whatever comes next. True to Ruth's spirit, we continued to live our lives, not allowing Sebastian's ominous message to shake us. We fortified our defenses, both legally and emotionally. Our unity was our strength, and we knew he couldn't break that. One afternoon, Alex and I found Ruth in the garden, tending to her beloved roses. Mom, Alex said gently, we need to talk about the future. Ruth looked up, her hands still covered in soil. What's on your mind? We want to ensure that you're always protected, I explained. Maybe we should formalize the trust and secure everything. Ruth wiped her hands on a cloth and stood up, her expression thoughtful. You're right. It's time to take the final steps. In the days that followed, we worked with Mr. Harris to solidify Ruth's assets into an irrevocable trust. Each signature and sealed document felt like another layer of protection forming around her, around us. One evening, while we were finalizing the papers, Ruth paused, looking over the documents. This isn't just about protecting me, she said, her eyes meeting mine. It's about protecting what's right, ensuring that deceit never wins. We nodded, understanding and appreciating the gravity of her words. Weeks passed, and the threat from Sebastian faded into a distant memory, though we remained vigilant. As summer gave way to autumn, our new life with Ruth felt more natural, a testament to the resilience we all shared. One crisp autumn morning, Ruth called us into the living room. There, she sat with an old, weathered book on her lap. I want to read you something, she said, opening the book. Her voice filled the room as she recited a passage about justice, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family. This is what you've given me, she said, closing the book and looking at us with glistening eyes. A family that stands together, even in the face of adversity. Alex hugged her tight, his voice thick with emotion. We wouldn't be here without you, Mom. You showed us what it means to truly fight for each other. Ruth smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. And you showed me what it means to be truly loved and protected. As we sat there, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence, I realized that this was the true victory. Not just outsmarting Sebastian and Trina, but becoming a family in the fullest sense. We were stronger, more united, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The echoes of past conflicts faded into the background, and we embraced the harmony we had worked so hard to achieve. Ruth's wisdom and courage had led us through the darkest times, and now in the light, we found peace. And in that peace, we carved out a future together, one that Sebastian and Trina could never touch. Kylie, I'm leaving you. I filed for divorce today. I love someone else. The words hit me like a slap across the face, disorienting me for a moment as I struggled to process what Todd had just said. What? You filed for divorce without telling me? I asked in disbelief, my voice shaking. How could he do this? Todd shrugged nonchalantly. I've moved out, and don't worry about the house, it's all taken care of. You're just not the wife I need anymore. My heart pounded in my chest, my anger and hurt swirling inside me like a raging storm. After 25 years of marriage, he was casually discarding me like yesterday's trash. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Todd's expression hardened. Look, I'm not going to argue about this. It's done. I've met someone new, someone who actually understands me. His callous dismissal stung, but it also ignited a fire within me. I wasn't going to let him off that easily. Who is she? I demanded, my voice steadier now. He hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Her name is Emily Reed. She's younger, more ambitious, and she actually supports my dreams. I recoiled as if he had physically struck me. Emily Reed. The name meant nothing to me, but the implication was clear. He had been having an affair behind my back, and now he was throwing away our marriage for this younger woman. Anger coursed through my veins, overriding the initial shock. How long has this been going on? I asked through gritted teeth. Todd shrugged again, his indifference only fueling my fury. A while. Look, I'm not going to stand here and justify myself to you. It's over, Kylie. Accept it and move on. With those words, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the middle of our living room, numb with disbelief and rage. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to lash out at the injustice of it all, but I found myself paralyzed, unable to do anything but watch as the life I had known crumbled around me. As the front door slammed shut behind Todd, a single thought crystallized in my mind. I would not let him get away with this. I would find out the truth, and I would make him pay for what he had done to me, to us. The war had just begun. After Todd left, I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. How had I not seen this coming? As the initial shock wore off, memories began to surface. The late nights at the office, the unexplained absences, the distance that had grown between us over the years. Had it all been leading up to this moment? I thought back to my dreams of becoming an architect, how I had put them on hold to start a family with Todd. At the time, it had seemed like the right choice, but now I couldn't help but wonder if I had sacrificed too much. The sound of my phone ringing jolted me out of my thoughts. It was Leslie, my best friend from college. We had drifted apart over the years, but she had always been there for me when I needed her. Kylie, is everything okay? You sound upset. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. It's Todd. He filed for divorce. Says he's been having an affair with some younger woman named Emily Reed. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Kylie, I'm so sorry. That must be devastating. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I never saw it coming. How could I have been so blind? Don't blame yourself, Leslie said firmly. This is on him, not you. He made the choice to betray your trust and throw away your marriage. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. You're right, and I'm not going to let him get away with it. What do you mean? I'm going to find out everything I can about this Emily Reed, and I'm going to make sure Todd pays for what he's done, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. Leslie hesitated. Kylie, I understand you're hurting, but revenge isn't going to make you feel better in the long run. Maybe not, I admitted, but I can't just sit back and let him walk all over me. I need to do something. There was a pause, and then Leslie sighed. All right, just be careful, okay? Don't do anything reckless. I won't, I promised, even though I wasn't entirely sure what I was capable of at that moment. After hanging up with Leslie, I sat for a long time, staring at the wall, replaying the events of the day in my mind. Todd's words echoed in my head, each one a knife twisting in my heart. As the anger and hurt swirled inside me, I made a decision. I was going to find out everything I could about this Emily Reed, and I was going to make sure Todd paid for what he had done to me, to our family. It was time to take action. Over the next few days, I became consumed by the need to uncover the truth about Todd's affair. I scoured his email and bank records, looking for any clues that might lead me to this mysterious Emily Reed. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of searching, I struck gold. A charge for a fancy restaurant downtown, one that Todd and I had never been to. I recognized the name and address immediately. It had to be where he was meeting her. That night, I waited outside the restaurant, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure what I was going to do or say when I saw them together, but I knew I needed to confront them, to see it with my own eyes. Sure enough, just after 8 o'clock, Todd's car pulled up, and he emerged, looking sharp in a suit and tie. A few moments later, a younger woman joined him, her arm linked through his. My stomach twisted into knots as I realized this must be Emily Reed. They disappeared inside the restaurant, and I waited, my anger and hurt simmering just below the surface. After what felt like an eternity, they finally emerged, laughing and holding hands. I steeled myself and stepped out from the shadows. So this is her, huh? The woman you threw away our marriage for? Todd froze, his expression shifting from shock to anger in an instant. Kylie, what the hell are you doing here? I think the better question is, what are you doing with her? I spat, gesturing towards Emily, who looked utterly bewildered. Kylie, this isn't what it looks like, Todd began, but I cut him off. Save it, Todd. I know exactly what this is. You've been having an affair, and now you're leaving me for this girl. Emily's eyes widened, and she looked at Todd in disbelief. Is that true? You're married? Todd sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. It's complicated, Emily. Kylie and we've been over for a long time. Don't feed her those lies, I snarled. We were fine until you decided to throw it all away for a pretty face. Emily shook her head, her expression a mixture of hurt and anger. You know what? I don't want any part of this. She turned and stormed off, leaving Todd and me alone on the sidewalk. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Todd rounded on me, his eyes blazing with fury. Are you happy now, Kylie? You've ruined everything as usual. I stepped closer, my hands balled into fists at my sides. Don't you dare try to pin this on me, Todd. You're the one who betrayed our vows, our family. You're the one who threw it all away for a fling with some younger woman. Todd scoffed, shaking his head. You just don't get it, do you? This isn't about Emily, it's about you and me. We've been miserable for years, and you were too blind to see it. His words stung, but I refused to back down. Well, congratulations, Todd. You've made your bed, and now you can lie in it. Alone. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there on the sidewalk. As I climbed into my car, tears streamed down my face, but I also felt a sense of relief. Relief that I had finally seen the truth, and relief that I had taken the first step towards getting the justice I deserved. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready for war. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Todd and Emily, I found myself retreating into a dark place. The sense of betrayal and anger burned like a fire inside me, clouding my thoughts and consuming my every waking moment. It was during this time that Leslie reached out to me again. We hadn't spoken since before my discovery of Todd's affair, and her call was a welcome reprieve from the turmoil that had become my life. Kylie, how are you holding up? She asked, her voice laced with concern. I sighed heavily. Not great, if I'm being honest. I caught Todd with the other woman, and it was ugly. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating. You have no idea, I replied bitterly. The things he said to me, the way he tried to justify his actions, it was like I didn't even know him anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Leslie spoke again, her tone more hesitant this time. Kylie, there's something else I need to tell you. My heart sank. What is it? I recently started seeing someone new. His name is David, and he's been wonderful, but... I felt a knot forming in the pit of my stomach. But what? There have been some red flags, Leslie continued. Little things that remind me of how Todd used to treat you. I'm worried I might be walking into another toxic situation. My blood ran cold. The thought of my best friend going through the same kind of hell I was enduring was unbearable. What kind of red flags? I asked, my voice low and serious. Leslie hesitated, and then she began to recount the little ways in which David's behavior had started to mirror Todd's. The occasional dismissive comment, the subtle attempts at control, the gaslighting when she tried to voice her concerns. As I listened, my anger towards Todd only grew stronger. How dare he treat me, treat us, like that? How dare he try to manipulate and control the people I loved most in this world? Leslie, you need to get out of that relationship, I said firmly. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't ignore the warning signs. There was a long pause, and then Leslie spoke again, her voice thick with emotion. You're right, Kylie. I can't let myself be blindsided again, not after everything you've been through. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. Todd had hurt me in the most profound way imaginable, but he wouldn't get away with it, not this time. Leslie, I need your help, I said, my voice steely with determination. I'm going to take Todd down, and I want you by my side. There was no hesitation this time. Whatever you need, Kylie. I'm with you, 100%. As we began to lay out our plans for revenge, a sense of purpose washed over me. Todd had made a grave mistake in underestimating the strength of our friendship, and he was going to pay dearly for it. The tide was turning, and this time, I was the one holding all the cards. With Leslie's help, I began to piece together a clearer picture of Todd's manipulation and deceit. It turned out that his affair with Emily was just the tip of the iceberg. He had been emotionally and financially abusive towards me for years, slowly chipping away at my self-worth and independence. As Leslie recounted her own experiences with David, she realized that he had been exhibiting similar patterns of behavior, ones that she had initially brushed off or rationalized away. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and my perspective, the truth became painfully clear. I can't believe I almost let myself fall into that trap again, Leslie said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and relief. If you hadn't been there to open my eyes, Kylie, I don't know where I'd be right now. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. That's what friends are for. We've got each other's backs, no matter what. A steely determination settled over us as we began to formulate our plan. We knew that taking down Todd wouldn't be easy. He was a master manipulator, and he had a way of twisting the truth to suit his own agenda. But we also knew that we had something he didn't: each other. We need evidence, Leslie said, her brow furrowed in thought, concrete proof of his misdeeds that he can't talk his way out of. I nodded, already formulating a plan. I'll hire a private investigator to dig into his financial records, his dealings at work, anything that could be used against him. Leslie's eyes lit up. And I can continue to play dumb with David, feed his ego, and make him think he's got me wrapped around his finger. That way, he'll let his guard down and reveal more of his true colors. A slow smile spread across my face. It's perfect. We'll gather all the evidence we need, and then we'll strike when he least expects it. Over the next few weeks, our plan fell into motion. The private investigator uncovered a trail of financial misconduct and shady business dealings that would have been enough to ruin Todd's career and reputation on their own. And Leslie, bless her heart, played the role of the doting, clueless girlfriend to perfection, all the while secretly documenting David's increasingly toxic behavior. As the pieces fell into place, a sense of grim satisfaction washed over me. Todd had always underestimated the bond between Leslie and me, thinking that he could pit us against each other or manipulate us into submission. But he was wrong. Our friendship was stronger than his lies, our determination more powerful than his deception. And soon, he would learn that lesson the hard way. As Leslie and I pored over the evidence we had gathered against Todd and David, a sense of grim determination settled over us. We knew that taking them down wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to do whatever it took to see justice served. That's when Megan, my daughter, got involved. "Mom, what's going on?" she asked, eyes wide with concern. "You and Aunt Leslie have been holed up in here for days, and you both look like you're plotting a heist or something." I exchanged a glance with Leslie, silently debating how much to tell her. In the end, I decided that honesty was the best policy. Megan was an adult, and she deserved to know the truth. "Sit down, honey," I said, gesturing to the couch. "There's something we need to tell you." Over the next hour, Leslie and I laid out the entire sordid tale: Todd's affair, his emotional and financial abuse, and our plan to take him down once and for all. Megan listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to anger as she processed the information. "That son of a bitch," she muttered when we finished, her hands clenched into fists. "How could he do that to you, Mom? To all of us?" I reached out and placed a hand on her arm, offering what little comfort I could. "I know, sweetie. Believe me, I know." Megan took a deep breath, her eyes blazing with determination. "Well, count me in. Whatever you need, I'm here to help." A slow smile spread across Leslie's face. "Actually, there might be something you can do for us." It turned out that Megan's position as a high-level executive at a major tech company gave her access to resources that could prove invaluable in our quest for revenge. With her help, we were able to dig even deeper into Todd's financial misdeeds, uncovering a web of fraud and corruption that stretched back years. "This is bigger than we thought," Megan said grimly, scrolling through the damning evidence on her laptop. "If we play our cards right, we could not only ruin his reputation, but also have him facing criminal charges." A sense of vindictive satisfaction washed over me. After everything Todd had put us through, the idea of seeing him face real consequences for his actions was almost too good to be true. Almost. As the three of us put the finishing touches on our plan, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude, not just for the strength and resilience of my daughter and my best friend, but also for the unwavering bond that had carried us through even the darkest of times. Todd had made a grave mistake in underestimating the power of our love and loyalty, and now he was going to pay the ultimate price. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than any of us expected. Todd had scheduled a meeting at his office, no doubt to discuss some shady business deal or another. Little did he know, we had been tipped off, and we had a surprise waiting for him. As Leslie, Megan, and I made our way into the building, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was it, the moment we had been planning for, the moment when Todd would finally face the consequences of his actions. We reached his office, and I took a deep breath before knocking firmly on the door. "Come in," Todd's voice called out, oblivious to the storm that was about to be unleashed. I pushed open the door, and we filed in one by one. Todd's eyes widened in surprise as he took us in, his gaze lingering on Leslie and Megan. "Kylie, what's going on here?" he demanded, his brow furrowed in confusion. I stepped forward, my hands trembling with a potent mix of nerves and anticipation. "We know, Todd. We know everything." His expression hardened, and he opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "Don't bother denying it. We have proof. Proof of your affair, your emotional abuse, your financial misdeeds. It's all right here." I held up a thick manila envelope, stuffed to the brim with damning evidence. Todd's face paled, and he glanced around the room, his eyes darting from one of us to the next. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You can't just barge in here and make these kinds of accusations." "Oh, but we can," Leslie chimed in, her voice dripping with disdain. "And we have. You see, Todd, you made a big mistake underestimating us. You thought you could play us against each other, manipulate us and control us like you always have." Megan stepped forward, her expression steely. "But you were wrong. We're stronger than your lies, stronger than your deceit, and we're not going to let you get away with it anymore." As if on cue, the door opened again, and a pair of security guards entered, flanked by a man in a crisp suit, no doubt a lawyer or a law enforcement officer. "Todd Parker," the man said, his voice grave, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and a host of other financial crimes." Todd's eyes widened in panic, and he whirled around to face me, his expression a twisted mask of rage and disbelief. You did this? You're ruining my life." I met his gaze unflinchingly, a sense of profound satisfaction settling over me. "No, Todd, you ruined your own life the moment you decided to betray your family and break the law. This is just the consequences catching up to you." As the security guards moved in to apprehend him, Todd struggled and fought, hurling insults and threats at us. But it was too late. The wheels of justice were already in motion. Outside, a crowd had begun to gather, alerted by the commotion and the presence of the authorities. And as Todd was led out in handcuffs, his expensive suit rumpled and his face contorted in fury, Megan pulled out her phone and began live-streaming the whole thing. Within minutes, the story had gone viral. Todd's misdeeds and downfall laid bare for the world to see. His reputation was in tatters, his career in ruins, all because he had underestimated the power of 3 determined women who refused to be victims any longer. As I watched him being loaded into the back of a police car, a profound sense of closure washed over me. The nightmare was finally over, and justice had been served. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. In the aftermath of Todd's dramatic downfall, life as we knew it changed completely. The criminal charges and financial repercussions left him practically destitute, his once lavish lifestyle reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. As for me, Leslie, and Megan, a profound sense of relief and vindication washed over us. We had taken our power back, refusing to be victims of Todd's manipulation and lies any longer. And in the process, we had forged an unbreakable bond that would carry us through whatever challenges life threw our way. It was during this time that Leslie approached me with an idea, one that would not only help us move forward, but also allow us to reclaim our passions and dreams. "Kylie, do you remember how you always wanted to be an architect?" she asked one day over coffee. I nodded, a wistful smile tugging at my lips. "Of course, but that was a long time ago before." My voice trailed off, the painful memories of sacrificing my ambitions for Todd still raw. Leslie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Well, why don't you go back to school? It's never too late to chase your dreams." At first, the idea seemed preposterous. I was in my mid-40s, with a lifetime of baggage and responsibilities weighing me down. How could I possibly start over now? But then I remembered the strength and determination that had carried us through our ordeal with Todd. If we could take down a man like that, surely I could find the courage to pursue my long-abandoned passion. "You know what? You're right," I said, a sense of excitement bubbling up within me. "I'm going to do it. I'm going to become an architect, just like I always wanted." Leslie's face split into a wide grin, her eyes shining with pride. "That's my girl. And you know what? I have an idea that could help us both." It turned out that Leslie had always harbored a love for interior design, a passion that had been stifled by her own toxic relationship with David. Together, we hatched a plan to start our own firm, combining my architectural skills with her eye for design. With Megan's help and support, we navigated the bureaucratic hurdles and secured the necessary licenses and permits. Before we knew it, our dream had become a reality. A thriving business built on the foundation of our unwavering friendship and resilience. As the months passed, our client list grew, and our reputation for excellence spread like wildfire. We poured our hearts and souls into every project, infusing each design with a piece of ourselves. The strength we had found in our darkest moments, the determination to create something beautiful from the ashes of our pain. And through it all, we never lost sight of the lessons we had learned from our ordeal with Todd. We knew the value of loyalty, of trust, and of never underestimating the power of a few committed individuals to change the course of their lives. As for Todd, his fate was sealed, a cautionary tale of what happens when greed and ego consume a person's soul. He faded into obscurity, left to grapple with the consequences of his actions while we soared to new heights, unburdened by his toxic presence. In the end, our story was one of redemption, of finding the courage to chase our dreams and build a life on our own terms. And as I looked around at the incredible women who had become my family, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient than before. "Aunt Claire, aren't you embarrassed to be mooching off Grandma and Grandpa at your age? This should be our house." Chloe's voice cut through the morning calm like a knife. I looked up from the garden, my temper flaring. Chloe, with her smug 15-year-old face, stood at the patio door, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. I took a deep breath, remembering that she was just a kid, but the venom in her words stung. "Chloe, I think you've misunderstood something," I said as calmly as I could manage. I'm here to help your grandparents, not to take anything from them. Her eyes rolled dramatically. Yeah, sure, that's what Mom says too. I turned back to my work, trying to tune out the negativity. I couldn't figure out what had changed in the years I was gone. How did my sweet niece become so spiteful? And why were Eric and Susan fueling this hostility? The screen door creaked open, and my mother, Linda, came out carrying a tray of lemonade. Everything all right, honey? She asked, casting a cautious glance in Chloe's direction. Just a little misunderstanding, I replied, standing up to take a glass. Where's Dad? He's inside fixing the sink, she said, her eyes softening with worry. Eric's family should be here soon. You know how he gets if things aren't perfect. Perfectly unreasonable, I muttered under my breath. Mom's face fell for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. Well, let's get ready. You know he means well. I knew he didn't. Eric and his family arrived every Sunday like clockwork, turning our home into a battleground. The car's tires screeched on the gravel, and within seconds the front door banged open. Eric's voice boomed through the house. Why is there dirt on the floor? Can't anyone keep this place clean? I tensed, feeling the all-too-familiar knot of frustration in my stomach. Eric stormed into the kitchen, Susan right behind him. Claire, did you forget to clean? Or are you just too lazy? He sneered. I met his gaze, my voice steady. I was in the garden. The house is fine. It's far from fine. I'm embarrassed to bring Susan and Chloe here, Eric spat, grabbing the lemonade from the tray with a scowl. Susan smirked, looking down her nose at me. Just try to do better, all right? We have standards. Chloe sauntered past, purposely knocking over a stack of books on her way to the living room. Oops! I clenched my fists, trying to keep my cool. My parents appeared behind me, Dad's wrench still in hand. We invited you for a family dinner, not to criticize us. Eric rolled his eyes. Dad, come on. We're just trying to help Claire improve. I took a deep breath, each word a struggle. I'm here to support Mom and Dad, not to be insulted in my own home. Susan's laugh grated on my nerves. Your home? Funny, Claire. Last I checked, it's our family home. My parents exchanged a weary look. The tension was palpable. How did it come to this? Every visit felt like a never-ending ordeal, filled with disrespect and entitlement. But standing in the kitchen, facing my brother's hostile glare, I knew something had to change. My quiet resolve settled in. I would find a way to reclaim peace for my parents' self, no matter what it took. Eric's family took over the living room like they owned the place. Chloe sprawled on the couch, blasting music through her headphones. Susan organized and reorganized the decorative pillows, her expression one of thinly veiled disdain. Eric leafed through the mail, tossing bills aside with a dismissive flick of the wrist. I busied myself in the kitchen, prepping dinner with my mom. The tension made the air thick, each clatter of a dish feeling like a minor earthquake. Why does it always feel like a takeover? I muttered, slicing a carrot. They're family, my mom replied softly, though her shaky hands betrayed her stress. We'll get through tonight. Dinner started awkwardly as usual. Dad served his famous pot roast, a meal he took pride in, but no sooner had we begun eating than Chloe made a face, pushing her plate away. I don't want this. Can we get a pizza or something? She whined. Chloe, don't be rude, I said, my patience thinning. Susan chimed in with an exaggerated sigh. Oh, let her be. She has a right to her preferences, Claire. Well, she could say it more respectfully, I retorted. Dad worked hard on this meal. Hardly seems like work, Eric muttered, not looking up from his plate. My dad's shoulders slumped. The effort he had put into the meal was undeniable, and the disrespect stung him visibly. Eric, enough, I said, standing up. Show some gratitude. Eric smirked. Why should I thank him for subpar food? Chloe's right. We should just order out. Susan nodded in agreement, amplifying the tension. I agree. It's not fair to force her to eat something she doesn't like. Anger flared in my chest. This was too much. This isn't just about the food, it's about respect. Susan's eyes narrowed. Respect? Funny, Claire. Living off your parents doesn't seem very respectful either. I clenched my teeth, struggling to keep calm. I help them. What are you doing besides taking advantage? Eric slammed his fork down. You think you're so high and mighty. We're family, and family shares. Funny how you're the only one benefiting here. Enough. Dad's voice shook with rare force. This is my house, and Claire is here to help us. If you can't support that, maybe you shouldn't come at all. Silence settled over the table. heavy and awkward. "We just want what's best for everyone," Susan said finally, though her tone was anything but conciliatory. "Best for you, maybe," I muttered, sitting back down. We finished the meal in strained silence, every bite feeling like a chore. As Eric's family prepared to leave, the usual promises to do better next time dripped with insincerity. As soon as the door closed behind them, I turned to my parents. "This has to stop. They can't keep treating us like this." Mom nodded, tears in her eyes. "We know. Something has to change, Claire." Dad, his usual warmth dimmed, looked at me with a resolve that mirrored my own. "We need a plan. We can't keep living like this." "No, we can't," I agreed. There was a fierce determination growing inside me, one that promised things would be different. It was time to take control for all our sakes. The following Sunday, the tension in the house was almost unbearable. I could see it in my parents' eyes. They dreaded these visits as much as I did. When the doorbell rang, my stomach twisted. "Here we go," I murmured to myself, opening the door. Eric, Susan, and Chloe sauntered in like they owned the place. "Dad made dinner again," I said, more as a warning than a welcome. "Great," Chloe groaned. "Hope it's better than last time." We gathered around the table. Dad brought out a steaming dish of pasta, but as soon as he set it down, Chloe crossed her arms and scowled. "I don't want pasta. I want burgers," she declared, eyes locked on her phone. "This is what we're serving tonight, Chloe," I said as calmly as possible. "You don't always get what you want." Eric leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Claire, you need to stop telling our daughter what to do. She's got her own mind." "Her mind? All she does is complain," I shot back. "Calm down, everyone," Mom pleaded, looking helpless. Susan took a small bite and then grimaced. "Paul, do you ever cook anything edible?" Dad's hands shook slightly as he reached for his glass of water. I could feel my anger boiling over. "How dare you? Dad's a retired chef. Show some respect," I said sharply. "Retired being the key word," Eric added, laughing. At that moment, Dad's face turned beet red. "If you don't like the food, you're welcome to leave," he said, a quiver in his voice, but a firmness I'd rarely seen. Susan snorted. "Fine, Chloe. Let's go. We'll get takeout." Chloe stood, shoving her chair back with unnecessary force. "Good. This place is lame anyway." "Stop," I yelled, standing up so fast my chair tipped over. "You're not just taking advantage of our hospitality. You're ruining our family." Eric's eyes narrowed. "And what are you going to do about it, Claire?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "I don't know yet, but this stops now." Susan laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Good luck with that. Let's go, Chloe." They marched out, slamming the door behind them. The house fell into silence again, but this time it was laced with a newfound tension. "We can't keep living like this," Dad said, sinking into his chair. "No, we can't," I agreed. "But what can we do?" Mom hesitated, but finally spoke up. "We're going to transfer the house to you, Claire. Let's look for a smaller place that's just for us." I stared at them, surprised. "Are you sure? That's a big step." Dad nodded. "We're tired of Eric's demands and Susan's insults. It's time we took control back." My own resolve hardened at that moment. "All right, I'll get everything started. We're not doing this alone. We're doing it together." That night, as I lay in bed, the plan started forming in my mind. This wasn't just for me. It was for my parents, and I'd do whatever it took to protect them. It was time to put our plan into action. The following weekend, Eric's family barged in with the usual sense of entitlement. This time, however, the air felt heavier. Everyone sensed that something was about to break. Before we even finished dinner, Chloe threw her fork down, her face scrunched up in disgust. "I'm not eating this," she yelled, pushing her plate away and standing up abruptly. "Chloe, sit down and eat your meal," I said sternly, my patience wearing thin. "No, this is gross. I want pizza," she shot back, crossing her arms defiantly. Susan smirked up at me from her seat. "She's right, Claire. Why do you keep forcing her to eat this stuff? Just let her order what she wants." Dad's confidence seemed to falter as Susan's words dug in, his shoulders drooping slightly. "Do you know how disrespectful that is?" I snapped, glaring at Susan. "This isn't a restaurant. Dad worked hard on this meal." Eric, who had been silent until now, suddenly stood up, knocking his chair over. "That's enough. We're moving in, Claire. This is our house too, and we're done with these stupid dinners." The room plunged into shocked silence. "You can't be serious," I finally said, my voice shaking with fury. "This house isn't big enough for all of us." Eric crossed his arms, his face set in a steely glare. We'll make it work. No, I said firmly, you can't just declare it and make it so. And what do you plan to contribute, financially or otherwise? We're family, Susan interjected smoothly, standing up to join Eric's side. We shouldn't have to pay to live here. It's as much ours as yours. That's not happening, I said coldly, feeling my parents' support beside me. You're not moving in and taking over. You can't just decide and invade our home. Eric's eyes flared with anger. Try and stop us, Claire. My mother stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. Eric, we've made a decision. We're transferring this house to Claire. You can't bulldoze over our wishes. Eric's face turned a deep shade of red. What? You can't do that! It's already in the works, Dad added, regaining his composure. We're not allowing this house to fall into your hands. Susan's eyes filled with tears, the manipulative kind I had seen too many times. You can't leave us out in the cold. Where will we go? That's not our problem, Susan. You've overstayed your welcome and shown nothing but disrespect, I said sharply. Chloe glared at me, her face screwed up in anger. This isn't fair. I hate this place. My resolve hardened even more. Maybe it's time you learned what fair really means, I said. As Eric and his family stormed out, slamming the door behind them, a peculiar calm settled over the house. We were finally taking the steps to protect our family and restore peace. But I knew the confrontation wasn't over. The real battle was just beginning. We'll start the final arrangements tomorrow, I said to my parents, feeling a newfound strength. We're going to reclaim our home. After that explosive dinner, we worked quickly to put our plan in motion. The next morning, I made calls to an attorney who specialized in property transfers, setting up an appointment for later that day. Sitting in the living room, my parents and I outlined our steps. The gravity of our decision weighed heavily, but it also brought a sense of empowerment. If we don't do this now, they'll tear us apart, I said firmly, meeting my parents' eyes. Dad nodded. They've taken advantage long enough. It's time to protect what's ours. Arriving at the attorney's office, we were greeted by a kindly lawyer named Mr. Harris. He listened intently as we explained our situation, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. Transferring the house to Claire is straightforward, Mr. Harris said, but you'll need to sign these documents, and it might take a few days to finalize. During this time, it's essential not to inform Eric or his family. Mom sighed with relief. We won't tell them a thing. Thank you. Back at home, the sense of urgency propelled us. I began researching smaller homes for my parents, focusing on comfort and accessibility. Each evening, we'd gather around the dining table and review listings, debating pros and cons. I like this one, Mom pointed to a cozy bungalow. It's got everything we need and is near the park. It's perfect, I agreed, smiling. Dad's eyes softened as he looked at the listing. It'll be a fresh start for us. Once the house transfer documents were signed, sealed, and delivered, I worked swiftly to secure the bungalow we had chosen. Everything seemed to fall into place, and I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of vindication. A few days later, while I was packing up some of their belongings, Eric barged in without knocking. His face was red with fury. I know what you're doing, he spat. You think you can just cut us out? Eric, this isn't your decision to make, I replied, standing my ground. Mom and Dad have made their choice, and you need to respect it. Respect? You think that's what you're showing them? Susan's voice echoed from the hallway as she marched in behind Eric. You're brainwashing them against us. I laughed, though it was humorless. Brainwashing? Look at how you've treated them. This is about protecting them. This isn't over, Eric threatened, grabbing Susan's arm. Mark my words, Claire. They stormed out, but I felt a sense of resolve. Let them try, I thought. The next morning, I sat with my parents as we finalized the moving date. You'll be settled in the new house next week, I said, feeling a wave of relief. Packing day approached, and as we loaded the last box into the moving truck, my parents looked at me with gratitude. Thank you, Claire, Mom said, her voice choked with emotion. We couldn't have done this without you. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes reflecting both pride and relief. We're finally free. I nodded, feeling the weight lift off our shoulders. This was just the beginning. We had reclaimed our peace, and I was more determined than ever to keep it that way. With everything in place, our new chapter was about to begin, and I was ready for whatever came next. Moving day arrived with a mixture of nervous anticipation and unmistakable relief. As the last box was loaded onto the truck, I caught sight of a moving van turning onto the street. "Eric's here," Dad said quietly. I nodded. "I'll handle it." Eric burst out of the van with Susan and Chloe trailing behind, looks of confusion quickly turning into rage. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, his voice booming. "Why is the house empty?" I stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "The house is ours now. We've moved Mom and Dad to a new place that suits their needs better. You were out of line, and this was the best decision for them." "You can't just decide that for us," Susan screeched, her face contorting in anger. "We were supposed to move in today." "Well, you're not," I said firmly. "The house no longer belongs to you, and honestly, it never did." Eric's face turned redder, veins bulging on his neck. "This isn't over, Claire. You think you can just kick us out like this?" A demolition crew pulled up as I spoke, and suddenly the sound of machinery filled the air. "Oh, it is over," I replied, signaling the crew to start. "We're downsizing the house. It will be demolished and rebuilt. You have no place here." Susan's face went pale, then twisted in fury. "You'll regret this," she spat, tears starting to form. "We'll fight this legally." "Good luck," I said with a chilling calm. "Everything has already been legally transferred. You have no claim." Chloe stood there, stunned into silence for once. She looked up at her parents, confusion and fear mingling in her eyes. "What are we going to do?" she asked, her voice small. That question hung heavily in the air, unanswered. Eric and Susan's bravado faltered, reality sinking in. They hadn't expected us to fight back, and they certainly hadn't expected to lose. "Mom, Dad," I called out, motioning them over. "It's time to go to your new home." Mom and Dad walked over, their faces a mixture of sadness and relief. "Claire's right," Dad said, his voice steady. "This is for the best." Eric made a last-ditch effort, grabbing Dad's arm. "You can't leave us like this, Dad. We're family." Dad shook his arm free, looking Eric in the eye. "We are family, which is why I hoped you'd understand. We need peace, Eric. We can't have that with you here." Susan sobbed openly now. And Chloe was on the brink of tears. "This is our home," she insisted, stamping her foot. "Not anymore," I said firmly. "Your behavior left us no choice." We turned and walked to the car as the demolition team began its work. The sound of walls coming down filled the air, blocking out any further argument from Eric and his family. As I drove my parents to their new home, a weight lifted from all of us. Reaching the small, cozy bungalow, I helped my parents settle in. There was an undeniable sense of relief as we unloaded the last of their belongings, each item a symbol of a fresh start. "Thank you, Claire," Mom said, giving me a hug. "This means everything to us." Dad gave a nod of approval, his eyes glistening. "You've given us a new life." I smiled, feeling the peace we had fought so hard for settling around us. We had taken a stand, reclaimed our dignity, and protected our family. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like we had truly come home. The week following the move was blissfully quiet. My parents settled into their new home, their faces visibly more relaxed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Eric and Susan wouldn't give up easily. One evening, as we were unpacking the last of the boxes, my phone buzzed with a message from Eric. "Meet me at the old house tomorrow. We need to talk." The next day, I arrived at the now empty lot. The sight of the demolished house felt both empowering and bittersweet. Eric stood there, looking more disheveled than usual. Susan and Chloe were in the car, their faces a mixture of anger and confusion. "What do you want, Eric?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "This isn't fair, Claire," he began, his tone more desperate than before. "You can't just take everything away from us." "I didn't take anything, Eric. You pushed us to this point with your behavior. We needed to protect Mom and Dad." "Protect them from what? Us? We're family," Susan shouted from the car, her face contorted with anger. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you have," I said coldly. "You disrespected and manipulated them. It's over." Eric stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You don't understand, Claire. We're in serious financial trouble. We need this house." I felt a brief pang of pity, but quickly suppressed it. "You should have thought about that before treating us like doormats. Besides, it's too late. The house is gone, and so is your claim to it." Chloe finally stepped out of the car, tears streaming down her face. "Where are we supposed to go? We have nowhere else." That's not my problem. You brought this on yourselves, I said, though it hurt seeing my niece like that. We'll fight this. We'll find a way to get back what's ours, Susan yelled, her voice cracking. Good luck with that, I replied simply, turning to leave. It's done. Back home, I relayed the encounter to my parents. They listened quietly, their faces reflecting a mix of sadness and relief. We did the right thing, Claire, Dad said, though he looked weary. This is their mess to clean up. Absolutely, Mom agreed. We deserve peace, and peace we found. Days turned into weeks, and gradually, Eric's threats dwindled into silence. My parents began to truly enjoy their new home, free from the burden of constant conflict. One afternoon, we sat on the porch, sipping lemonade and listening to the birds. This is nice, Mom said, her voice content. It really is, Dad agreed. We haven't had this kind of tranquility in years. We had heard through the grapevine that Eric, Susan, and Chloe moved in with Susan's parents. The strict and unyielding environment wasn't an easy adjustment for them. Chloe struggled with the discipline she wasn't used to, and Susan's manipulative tactics fell flat with her own parents. I couldn't help but think about the karma we had alluded to. It was beginning to unfold. Even as I thought about them, I felt justified. We had stood up for ourselves and reclaimed our lives. With each passing day, the relief felt more like liberation. All we ever wanted was a happy family, Mom said, taking my hand. And now, we finally got it. I smiled, squeezing her hand back. Yes, we do, and it's going to stay that way. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I realized that this was just the beginning, for us, and perhaps even for Eric's family, in their own way. A few months passed, and life settled into a steady rhythm. My parents and I thrived in the stress-free environment of their new, cozy bungalow, but the fallout from our decisive actions still echoed. One morning, as I sat in the kitchen sipping coffee, the phone rang. It was Eric. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Claire, he started, his tone surprisingly subdued. We need to talk. What is it, Eric? I asked cautiously. We're struggling, he admitted. Susan's parents aren't exactly welcoming, and Chloe is having a hard time. Can we meet? I thought carefully before agreeing. Fine, let's meet at a cafe downtown at noon. When I arrived, Eric and Susan were sitting at a table, looking more worn than ever. Chloe was absent, likely in school or avoiding the confrontation. Eric spoke first. Look, Claire, we messed up. We've realized that, but we're in a bad spot. We need help. Susan nodded, though her usual haughtiness was noticeably absent. Living with my parents hasn't been easy. They're strict, and it's been hard on Chloe. This whole situation has made us rethink our actions. I leaned back, crossing my arms. It took this long for you to see reason? Eric sighed deeply. Yeah, it did. But we're ready to make things right. We need your forgiveness. I felt a flicker of pity. What exactly do you want from me? We're not asking for money or a place to stay, Susan said quickly. We just need your support to get back on our feet. My initial anger began to soften. Support how? Maybe help us find a place of our own, Eric said. We're job hunting, but it's tough. We just need some guidance. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Here's the deal. I'll help you find resources and connect you with people who can assist. But you have to stand on your own from here on out. No more handouts. Eric nodded, a spark of hope in his eyes. Thank you, Claire. We appreciate it. Susan murmured her thanks as well, a faint smile forming. Back at home, I shared the conversation with my parents. They listened quietly, absorbing every detail. I hope this is a turning point for them, Dad said after a long pause. But Claire, you've done enough. Don't let them drag you down again. Mom nodded in agreement. They need to learn to stand on their own. Over the next few weeks, I helped Eric and Susan network and apply for housing assistance. They found a modest apartment, and Eric landed a job that instilled a sense of stability. One evening, while sitting on our porch watching the sunset, Dad turned to me. You did the right thing, Claire. You gave them a chance, but you also set clear boundaries. I'm proud of you. Mom squeezed my hand. We all needed this. A fresh start for everyone. As the sky darkened, I realized that true revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about reclaiming our peace and helping others see their faults. We had taken back our lives, and in the process, perhaps set Eric's family on a path to redemption. Here's to new beginnings, I said, lifting my glass. And for the first time in years, our future felt unequivocally hopeful.